3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Oh, it's Gresh in for Gelb today, ladies and gentlemen, all across America, coast to coast, border to border, and in America's hat known as Canada. You can also get us anywhere around the world, not only on the Odyssey app, but you can watch me do this show, ladies and gentlemen. Believe it or not, you can watch me do this whatnot. Go to the Infinity Sports Network YouTube page, and it looks like I'm in the rubber room at the Puzzle Factory with my little padded area, but it's great for me to be with you for the next couple of hours here on the Infinity Sports Network. 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4 44-76. And may I start with this, ladies and gentlemen of America? May I start with the NFL owners are gutless. How about we start right there after what went down in Palm Beach, Florida the past couple of days? Here's what I find interesting is that it's not like the NFL owners are caught off guard by this. It's not like the NFL owners should really be caught by surprise by some of the things that were thrown their way, by some of the stuff that they had to vote on, for some of the stuff that they needed to handle and get to. I don't understand why the NFL owners haven't had time to think about this amongst themselves. We know these guys. They're billionaires, for crying out loud. We know that these cats, all of them, ladies and gentlemen, we know they all have discussions amongst themselves, right? We know that they're gonna have their clandestine chats, these NFL owners. You know, they'll kind of pull each other to the side a little bit and be like, hey, you know what? Maybe we should have some answers to certain things that we need to have answers to when we need to have answers to them. And a part of that is making sure that you protect the game, at least in their eyes, right? But it's pretty evident when you have half of the owners in the National Football League who I think want to vote against this, and then they don't have the chutzpah or the guts to do it. Again, this is not the first time that this has ever come up about the tush push. It's just maybe a different team that just happens to be squawking about it this time around. You know, we've seen this for decades now in the NFL. Somebody that can't stop something, or a team that gets aggravated with the way the game is going, they're going to raise their hand, they raise the objection, they start complaining about it. Folks, you can go all the way back to the beginning of the 2000s. And I remember kind of being embedded and covering the New England Patriots during the 03 and 04 seasons. I do believe the year that the Patriots matched up in the Super Bowl against the Eagles, there were a couple of teams, or against the Panthers, excuse me, that would have been 03. The teams that lost, which were, if I'm not mistaken, it was the Colts and it was the Philadelphia Eagles. They went to the league the next year after that, what turned into the 03 season Super Bowl between Carolina and New England. Those teams that lost went and complained about the clutching, the grabbing, the holding, the physical play. They were the ones that were laying the groundwork for this, wide open, let's play touch football kind of game that we're sort of morphing to, there we go, in the National Football League. But I'll tell you this, these owners have known that this is coming. These owners should not be surprised. Sorry about that. These owners should not be surprised in any way, shape, or form that they had to vote on this, and that, well, do you want to be the guy? Do you want to be the owner that looks at your coach and says, why do you want this banned? Or are you the guy that has to look at it, or are you the owner that looks at your coach and says, how come you're not pushing the rules? How come you're not trying to exploit stuff like this? I know, America, that I am among the rare people on national sports talk radio who can sit here and not reference chapter and verse stuff with NASCAR, but I can tell you what I've learned about that sport. Now, when I met my wife, I didn't really know about NASCAR. She was a NASCAR nut. And ever since then, I kind of gravitated towards following along, being a NASCAR fan. And here's what I learned in that sport. And I'm going to bring it back to an old coach in the NFL here in a moment. But the one thing that the NASCAR people do is they literally blur the lines. There are drivers in that sport who will say, if my crew chief or if my people don't end up getting in trouble along the way during the year, then I'm almost disappointed because you're not trying to gain us a competitive advantage. You're not looking at a rule and say, okay, what are maybe some of the ways around it? And ultimately NASCAR's punitive, and they'll, look and be like, hey man, they circumvented a rule, or you either close the loophole or you punish the people who abused what they thought was a loophole. And doesn't that sound a lot like Bill Belichick when he was with the New England Patriots? He interpreted the filming on the sideline rule differently than what it was intended. Ultimately, he got, and we know what went on from there. There's also a great website, by the way. If you think you're high and pious and your organization never does anything wrong, I would say go to a website called Your Team Cheats, because every team in the NFL has had something go wrong, whether it was some sort of like player violation or salary cap everybody does what everybody, again, it's the whole adage of you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, right? Now, I'm not sitting here saying that the Philadelphia Eagles are cheating, but what they've done is they've either exploited a poorly written rule, or the people in the NFL don't want to shut this down because they want their coach to be engaging in activities like this. If you're an owner, you don't necessarily want to close the door on your coach potentially looking at some of these rules. I'll go back to Bill Belichick. There was an AFC championship game to where you had the Baltimore Ravens and their head coach, John Harbaugh, who I think is one of the better head coaches in the NFL. He's no like fly-by-nighter. He's not a ham and egger. This guy's a real bona fide coach. Even that guy was complaining about the way that Bill Belichick and crew had lined up running back Shane Vereen at offensive tackle, and the Ravens completely missed it. They knew it was on the line of scrimmage. They didn't do the whole counting thing and stuff like that. And they're bitching during the game that, yeah, Belichick's doing this, he's doing that, whatever, he's a nefarious character, yada, yada. No. He knew the rule. If he tweaked and took advantage of it formationally, that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Not like filming people on a sideline or whatever, but your coach being able to not come across as if they're high and mighty when it's a situation like this where there is some, I guess, ambiguity in the rule. I'm just really disappointed that the owners have said to themselves, hey, you know what? Let's kick this down the road. Because to me, well, they're telling me with that at 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476. Well, the NFL owners are telling me what their inaction is that they want to do it, and right now they don't have kind of the guts to do so. Now, what's really interesting to me also are some of the voices that are coming out when it comes to talking about the tush push, right? Matt LaFleur, the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, whose team can't stop a nosebleed when it comes to something like this anyway, with a tush push. Matt LaFleur of the Green Bay Packers is talked about it at the owners' meetings. This is a group setting. You do have to kind of focus in a little bit, but here is what LaFleur had to say about the play and why he feels the way he does. That's okay. So Matt LaFleur was sitting around all these group of people at the owners' meetings, right? And LaFleur ended up saying basically health and safety. That was a part of it, right? And the whole, it feels more like a rugby play than it feels like a football play. I understand that. You can also say that about a quarterback sneak. I mean, God almighty, I was an offensive lineman in college from 92 to 95. And it was the whole, all right, here we go. We're going to try to get into the arrow so that we can run the quarterback sneak. And there were all those ways for you to kind of take your fats and your offensive linemen and kind of push people around, or at least gang up on them, double team the nose tackle, and here you go. But the way Philadelphia has done it, combined with their quarterback, has really flummoxed some people. And Matt LaFleur is clearly one of them. So yet Matt LaFleur out there is the one who wants to raise the red flag on all of this, right? So Green Bay was this year, I think they were the team this year that sort of raised the objection. And then you had Sean McDermott, who was sitting at that same coach's breakfast. And McDermott rolls out the line, well, it's a health and safety thing, and even though we don't have a ton of data that says contrary, here's why I think. Yeah, and he rolled out a whole bunch of, in my opinion, hooey on the potential injuries that can happen on this play, with the potential of a disaster that could happen. Meanwhile, this guy has a moose of a quarterback in Josh Allen, an absolute moose. And the dude has run, meaning Sean McDermott, over, I do believe I saw the last 5 years. The Bills are either second or third in the NFL in running a version of the tush push. Now, I know we can start to parse words on what is or what isn't the play and stuff like that, but it sure as hell makes sense from a Sean McDermott end that his quarterback, you would think, would be one of those guys that would be pretty good in a tush-push kind of play. Now, McDermott is clearly talking out of both sides of his mouth because there is the in the moment, I'm trying to win the game, and I don't have a power running back, and I don't have a running game that I can really count on. So what do? Well, I'll lean on my big quarterback. He can give me that yard, or he can give me that yard and a half, or whatever it is. And sometimes you do it with just a straight quarterback sneak. Sometimes you do it by running the tush push. And it's just really interesting to me that Sean McDermott, a defensive-minded coach, is one of the dudes who wants to stop this thing. I can understand an offensive-minded guy like Matt LaFleur looking at it and saying, how can I help myself as a head coach? Because there is the party that thinks, well, he's an offensive guy. Why wouldn't he want this play in? Well, he can't stop it. And it's more of the, I can't stop this thing versus me trying to use my quarterback in the same way. And we also had one of the Bears ownership, I'll call it one of the Bears ownership group representatives, but I guess you can go Bears owner George McCaskey. And McCaskey, very calmly, an old man, they're like, what about the tush push? And, well, I'm against it because of the safety concerns, and even though we don't have strong data on it, blah, 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 blah. So for some of these guys, the pivot has clearly been, okay, it's like a politician, and for those of you who are watching me on YouTube on the Infinity Sports Network stream, it's the old politician where it's like, okay, here's my notes, and what do I need to parrot out there for the people to kvetch and moan? And that is, well, let me go out there with my talking points. Well, there you go. And they had their talking points, and the talking points were clearly health and safety, health and safety, health and safety. I would like to think, America, that we are at least a little bit smarter than that. I would like to think, America, that we're at the point to where we know when we need to put our boots on because the owners are shoveling it right on top of our boots. And this is exactly what is happening right now. I think the owners want to take the play out of the game. I don't think they have the, let me use the line from the great Gorilla Monsoon. I don't think they have the testicular fortitude right now to do so. And as I mentioned, there is the whole, are you kind of neutering your coach a little bit in that, this was a workaround, so the next time there's a workaround, let's call it, are we going to, rally right away to kind of take the play away? Mike Vrabel's response was great. Vrabel's response was, yeah, it's hard to stop Lamar Jackson from running the ball too. Can we put in a rule against that? Where, Vrabel was completely dismissive of I think, the whole thing. But there is a bigger question that I have coming out of this at 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476, and that is, why aren't more people doing it? Wasn't there the old adage in sports that you kind of follow the wave of whatever is going on in your sport that would make you good? I want to examine that next. I am Gresh, in for Gelb. Hey, don't forget, we're looking for your Ask the Pros question as well. You can tweet your question to @Infinity Sports Network or @TheRealGresh using the hashtag AskThePros. Make sure you get those questions in. We will get to those a little bit later on. But I got to ask the question, what happened to all the followers in the NFL? I want to get to that next. I am Gresh, in for Gelb, here on the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Zach Gelb Show.
I am Gresh for Gelb. Don't forget, you can get us anywhere, anytime on the Odyssey app. As long as you can get an internet connection, you can listen to us on the Odyssey app wherever you are. You can also watch me on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, in my Gresh bunker. You can watch me do this here program on the YouTubes as well, and of course on all of your favorite Infinity Sports Network stations. So I think these NFL owners are pretty gutless on not wanting to vote against the tush push. I do think there are enough owners that have raised questions, and now we're starting to get what I would call the groundwork being laid for whenever there is a massive injury. And just hear me out. So right now, the Philadelphia Eagles are great at the tush push. And even though you have hypocrites like Sean McVay who are talking about taking it out of the game, I think it was number 3 in the NFL over a 5-year span where McDermott's running those kind of plays. And I know Warren Sharp is out there, did the breakdown of Green Bay on 4th down. They were really good at, guess what, 4th and 1 quarterback sneaks. Where were they bad? Well, whenever they'd have to call those pesky pass plays or maybe a pesky running play where you turn around and try to hit it to a running back and you can't get a first down. So we can go all the way back into the 80s. And there was always controversy around, the quarterback sneak, and they turned into a runner, and, the way people went about it. Do you remember there was a time where everybody would jump over the pile in the NFL? Running back. I mean, how many times have we seen the Walter Payton go up like Superman and dive over the pile? Remember, that was a thing for a while. And then it was, well, can you jump over this? And if you're a defender, can you jump over that? And then we tied in the kicking game to it. So it's not like these aren't things that are coming up for the very first time. My question is, why aren't more people doing it? Let me tell you something. If Sean McVay perfected this play, people would be running around pantsless screaming how much of a genius he is. And I'm dead serious on that because of the way people overreact to anything that guy does. Oh, my God. This assistant was stuck in him and he farted in an elevator and he smelled it. Let's hire him as our head coach. That's how crazy people go for this guy. He's a great offensive mind. I don't know if he's a great head coach, but that's my thing, nevertheless. But I really think if Sean McVay were one of the people who came up with this and not, I'm wearing shorts in the championship photo, Nick Sirianni, then maybe people do feel differently about this. Then then it became of something of genius, right? The way Belichick would have looked at a rule. Oh my God, it's genius what he did, when in reality, it's right there for everyone to do. And for years, hell, decades in the NFL, how many times have people gone along with what is, I guess I'll say, the hip, new, successful thing? In the early 2000s, the Rams were really good at throwing the ball around the lot. And then we allegedly had this era in football where it was, oh, it's all about the pass game. It's only about the pass game. No one cares about the run game anymore. Well, we've come back around to caring about the run game again. And stopping the run has always been a big deal on defense. So it's not like it never really went away. It's all in your purview, and I think how you want to look at some of this stuff. This is just the latest thing of the moment. But what I fail to understand is this, yes, it's about your quarterback, but it's more about your offensive line and the mentality of those guys up front. Here's what's crazy. I just cited the stat. They're like 80% success on 4th and 1, I do believe, in Green Bay last year when they're running a quarterback sneak. Is that because of a Jordan Love? Or is that because of the mentality of the offensive lineman, the timing of when you're calling a play, how you go and execute it? There's so much more that goes in. As a former offensive lineman, I'll tell you what I'd do. I'd slant the hell out of the defensive front. Slant it like crazy. If I know I'm going to give it up, I got to try to blow it up. And you're not going to blow it up with second-level defenders. It's got to be your big guys. And if you look at the center, and I'm sure Jason Kelsey has talked a lot about this. If you look at the center, they're rooting, meaning they're like rooting close to the ground. It's almost like the center and the nose tackle almost flop on top of each other in one way or another. No, I line up in the gaps, and I would slant hard. You're not going to go straight forward. I'm going to take my defensive lineman, and I'm going to try to take that O-lineman and fork that guy as if he was the O-lineman and hit him sideways and try to knock off kind of the equilibrium and the – now, I'm sure it's like, oh, yeah, that's really easy to do. Everybody's saying, I get it. It's a tough play to stop, but I'm just telling you that's what I would do. I would put in my 4 biggest defensive linemen and just have everybody slant hard and say, try to knock down these offensive linemen in a pile, try to slant them one way, and then we can overload and try to play over the top or see sort of what they're going to do with the quarterback in that instance. Because if they're great at it and you're just giving it up, you got to try to do something. But apparently, you're not going to go so far to try to do it with your starting quarterback. And here's what I would say. There are lots of quarterbacks in the NFL that if you put them on Philadelphia, they would still be good with the tush push. You can put Josh Allen there, and he'd be good. I think you can take a young Drake May at 225 pounds and teach him to be pretty good at that. I think there are, honestly, you couldn't do it with Kyler Murray. He's such a little guy. If you get any kind of push whatsoever, all he's going to do is find the little area to wiggle into. I mean, that's what I would say. But I think there are plenty of quarterbacks who would be able to adapt to it. I'll tell you this. Is he the greatest runner of all time? Nope. Is he great at the quarterback sneak? Maybe not. But if you ask Pat Mahomes to run the tush push, I think the guy would be successful because it's as much or more about the guys up front than it is the quarterback who is executing and running the play. Because if I needed a beefer in there and my quarterback, if I knew I had an O-line that could run this play and my quarterback wasn't worth a damn in running it, well then fine, put a running back under center. Put a tight end under center. Put the person in there who can handle the football and the snap and would be good at running this. I mean, if Baltimore, who has their own set of goal line plays when it comes to Lamar Jackson and people like that, but I'm being dead serious about this. Wouldn't a play like this, once you show that it works, on other teams
wouldn't you figure other ways to do it? I'll just give you a quick example. If you're Baltimore and you got that fullback, Ricard, Patrick Ricard, I think it is, the big guy. If that guy can take a snap under center and I can put some people behind him, they're going to push him, right? I mean, you just go to your bigs, meaning you bring in like an extra offensive lineman or that big D tackle from Florida that everybody can't wait to get into the NFL and see if Philadelphia gets him and maybe puts him back there. But you understand the essence of what I'm saying. If you're Baltimore and you don't want your quarterback to run it, but you got somebody else that can run it that's 250 pounds, they're going to get pushed from behind. Why haven't other teams done it? And that's the wild part of this. And I know I referenced earlier in 03 how teams who lost in the AFC and NFC championship game were complaining about the Patriots and the Panthers and their physicality and grabbing people and stuff like that. Well, you know what happened? Some teams started to try to, even as the rules were changing, get physical, grab people. You went along with you went with what was going on. You got on the train. You got along with the program. And maybe that's where this needs to go. Is it or if I'm an owner and my coach wants to block this, I'm grilling him. Why? Like, don't BS me. I sign your check. What's the real reason? Is it because y'all can't stop it? Is it because the play's patently unfair? Am I, as an owner, going to have to go out there and roll out the complete, utter hogwash that is it's health and safety, and we got to worry about that? And getting back to that quickly, all of the health and safety stuff is being mentioned so that if it happens one time that someone gets hurt, one time, they've now built all of the verbal rhetoric up on, well, we don't have the data, but it's only a matter of time. Right now it doesn't show it, but over time, there's going to be somebody that's going to get really mangled up or hurt and lost for the season, and then everybody gets on the ambulance, and there we go. But I think that's a part of the reason why, for those owners who can't push the others to vote this thing out, that's why we've seen the shift to, it's health and safety. Because the first time somebody big gets hurt, they can now jump on it and say, see, we didn't have the data, but if we didn't have this play, I wouldn't have lost my, center, guard, tackle, quarterback, whatever it is, insert player's name here. We wouldn't have lost this guy to this stupid play. 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476. Make sure you are tweeting us at INF Sportsnet or at The Real Gresh. Use the hashtag AskThePros. Be listening later in the question when we, or me listening later in the show, when we might answer your question. Again, 888-710-4ISN. I am going to get to the Final Four, but I'm as excited to talk Final Four as I am to talk to my buddy Rich Ackerman. Ack, how are you, pal?
I'm good. How's Carl's pop?
Carl is doing great. Carl turned 9.
Wow.
Carl's my golden retriever.
They grow up so fast.
Oh, he's such a beauty. Now he's got the old man groans, right? Now, I know you don't have any of these, Ack, right?
Oh, yeah, I know. I have them all.
Yeah, get him up out of the chair or whatever. Yep. He gets up off the floor and he'll go,
Oi is my favorite word.
Oi, oh yeah. And I'll tell you what, my dog says oi, I'm putting him on tour. I'll tell you that right now. I'm going to make something like that. Like the old Looney Tunes with that dancing, singing frog that they found in the construction site once.
Yes, singing Michigan Rag.
How's everything with you, friend?
Okay, everything is okay. No complaints.
All right.
Yeah.
How's everybody handling the St. John's loss? Did you get wrapped up in that at all?
It was hard because I think there was it was disappointment. That was really the favorite tone of it. But it was a hard team to get into because they really didn't hit stride till about January or maybe even later. So it was it was more of a bandwagon thing, and people started getting into it, and then it just ended. And it also wasn't surprising because, as you know, the NCAA tournament, it's all about matchups. St. John's big weakness all year long was they weren't a great perimeter shooting team, and especially from three-point range. And they ran into a team that had great talent. Arkansas. The biggest story was obviously R.J. Lewis, their leading scorer and Big East Player of the Year, sitting for the final 5 minutes. Like, what happened there?
No, that's a tough sell. And, having Patino obviously gets eyeballs, so that helps.
Yes.
And the people in Providence up here are ripped at Patino now. They were thrilled he was here a couple of weeks ago. Now he took Bryce Hopkins in the transfer portal.
Well,
and
get used to more of that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And for Providence, they're like poaching from other schools or whatever. And, oh, my God, what a mess. A bigger mess than the dog park down the road from my house is NIL. There we go.
Yeah, I miss – and this is not going back that far, but when Providence had Chris Dunn, who wound up staying longer because of injuries, Kyron Cartwright was another guy, was a 4-year player and really developed nicely over time. Like, it was good watching those things. And, again, not to be the get-off-my-lawn guy, but college basketball used to be great, and this is going back a ways. I'm just going to use these two guys as an example. But Patrick Ewing was not leaving school. And for 4 years, you got to see him grow, and the intrigue became, where's Patrick Ewing eventually going to go? And he wound up going to the Knicks, and he stepped into the NBA right away and was a great player. As great as Cooper Flagg is, if he goes to the Washington Wizards, they're still gonna stink next year. And he'll be okay, but he's not gonna be a day one dominating the NBA person.
Well, and now has NIL set it up to where even for somebody that can go high in the draft, you think about at least one more year, knowing that somebody like Flagg, I mean, if Arch Manning's making $6.5 million reportedly, if Flagg came back to Duke, that's got to be $5 million for a year. So it's not like you're losing out on tons of money the way it used to be back. Whenever remember the word hardship act?
Yeah, sure.
So many fans now are like, wait, what's the hardship rule? And it's like, well, it basically became, pushed into the CBA. But I hear you, the romanticism of being able to watch 5 or 4 guys all play together for a long period of time and then have that NCAA tournament run, it feels like those are days of yesteryear.
Yeah, I mean, it's a new team every year. And the other thing, too, in R.J. Lewis's case, and I don't mean to single him out, but now that these guys are getting whatever they're getting, it's not like, oh, poor kid. It's like, why? What did he do? It's
yeah,
changed.
right.
I mean, and unfortunately, it's resulted in some people being harassed, which is really, extremely, extremely disappointing and unfortunate. But that's the reality of where we are today between NIL and betting. There's no compassion or sympathy for these players.
No, none at all. A man of passion and sympathy.
Yeah, that's right.
Compassion and sympathy. Our guy Ack gets you updated on everything in the world of sports.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Oh, we have a lot of baseball to get to, but first we got to get this riddle in, sponsored by Progressive Insurance. What do your home and auto have in common? Progressive protects them both. It was an easy riddle. Learn more at Progressive.com. The 2003 NBA Draft already has one Hall of Famer and set to induct another, with Carmelo Anthony reportedly set to join Dwayne Wade in Springfield as a member of the 2025 class. Jackson Merrill and the Padres agree to a 9-year extension worth $135 million, and rookie Christian Campbell gets an 8-year extension from the Red Sox. Action right now, the Pirates lead the Rays in the 9th, 4-2, while the Royals and Brewers are even at 1. In the top of the 10th, Jackson Churio with his first home run of the season in this one for Milwaukee. Mike Trout hitting his first. The Angels and Cardinals are now tied at 5 in the bottom of the 8th. The Twins and White Sox being held up by rain in Chicago. Bottom of the 2nd, it's the Blue Jays 1, Nationals nothing. Cubs and A's are underway and scoreless. And the Rangers blanked the Reds 1-0. Jack Leiter went the first 5, gave up just 1 hit on the day. Cincinnati held to just 3 hits on the day. I'm Rich Ackerman.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is, play Infinity Sports Network. That's it. Play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show.
Make sure you're tweeting your question to @INFSportsNet or @TheRealGresh using hashtag AskThePros. Be listening later in the show. We might answer your question. Make sure you get your question to us. I am Gresh in for Gelb today here on the Infinity Sports Network. 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476. If you find yourself moving around, meaning you're in and out of the car. For some people on the West Coast, it's almost lunchtime, or it is lunchtime. People on the East Coast, you might be zipping around in and out of an office or whatever. You can listen to me on the Odyssey app, or you can also go to YouTube, find Infinity Sports Network, bingo, bango. You can watch me do this show live from where I am. Next hour, I'm going to get into the Torpedo Bats, and got some NBA to touch on, but I know that Ack and I just talked a little bit about, some Final Four stuff and things like that. Let me tell you, I have to say, this Final Four, oh my goodness gracious. Oh my goodness. I am so excited for it, and I understand that we have created a problem in America when it comes to the NCAA tournament. And people are like, what do you mean by you've created a problem? Clearly, the marketing of the NCAA tournament and the fact that it is so much tied around Cinderella, or that the small conference team trying to make a run against the big boys, maybe it has been pushed and marketed so much that we have now trained people that it is not a great NCAA tournament unless you get the upsets, unless you get this, unless you get that. And maybe we have programmed people to think that the only way to enjoy an NCAA tournament is really by having Drake make a run to the Sweet 16 and then ultimately get beat by somebody that we know they're going to get pasted by from, anywhere between 10 to 20 points. That's what it feels like to me, is that now that I look back on it, like the way a certain four-letter network completely shoved down our throats, Red Sox, Yankees. Oh, my God. The first game of the year between the vaunted teams that hate each other. Red Sox, Yankees at 8 o'clock. And that's the next day. Hey, game 2. We're going to squeeze more blood out of this rock. It's Red Sox, Yankees on a Monday afternoon. And then, 3 weeks later, Red Sox, Yankees. We can't put them on the moon, but we'll put them on our TV. And it's like, you're just shoving it down our throat. Oh, my God, this one matchup. And now it's shifted to the Dodgers and all that. But now that I sit back and think about some of the marketing of the NCAA tournament, maybe it was too much around training people to think that the only way there is excitement in an NCAA tournament is to have those kinds of upsets. And that isn't necessarily the case. When I was chit-chatting with Ack, and he mentioned Arkansas. Arkansas is an interesting case study because as a 10 seed in the Sweet 16, are they not Cinderella by seed, and they're not by conference? That's the problem, and they're a big-name brand, and that's a part of the problem too. So we probably should have looked at Cinderella in Arkansas. We should have seen there's everything there, minus you're a big-name brand, and you got John Calipari as your head coach. But otherwise, they didn't have a great year. If we swapped out Arkansas and Drake on a 10-11 seed line, if we had swapped them and it was Drake who made it through to the Sweet 16, I don't think people would have had the I guess let's call it bad taste in their mouth after the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. I am Gresh in for Gelb. If you can't get through at 888-710-4ISN, you can always get me on Twitter or X or TikTok or YouTube at The Real Gresh, Gresh. But when we look at this Final Four, how can you not be excited for it? I mean, really, for as much as there was the disappointment of the first round, we're now getting Duke against Houston and Auburn against Florida. And what I find fascinating about this, a couple of things. One of them is, and maybe this is just an NFL thing, but in an era where fans don't want old coaches, in Atlanta last year, I don't want Belichick, he's old. Look in Vegas, I don't want Pete Carroll, he's old. In college basketball, age doesn't really matter. And when you look at the matchups, you have 65-year-old Bruce Pearl against the coach from Florida who's under 40. And then you got John Shire, who's I think like 38, 39 at Duke, and Kelvin Sampson, who I think is 65 or 66. I just find it very interesting how in certain sports we focus on the age of the coach. You know, like there are people who think that Bill Belichick won't be successful at North Carolina because he's 72. Well, the guy can sell, I'll tell you that. Look at his 25-year-old girlfriend. I mean, he's got to have some way with words, you would think. But Auburn against Florida, an SEC battle, which if an SEC team wins the national championship, I do fear that arrogant SEC football fan will start to come out and kind of club us over the head a little bit on the we're great, SEC, we're great. And they're at least going to get a team in the national championship game. So for those people, they're just waiting to rise up and start crowing about their conference. They're at least going to be able to through next weekend. But I hate saying this because I'm not a Duke hater, but I also don't love Duke either, so don't get me wrong. But it feels like Duke has kind of rounded very nicely into shape with arguably the best player in college basketball in Cooper Flagg. And I really thought with Flagg being hurt, oh my goodness, this was not going to go well. I did not think that Flagg was really going to play in the first weekend of this NCAA tournament because that ankle roll in the ACC tourney looked pretty bad. Well, Duke has done nothing but blow doors, and minus the game against, Arizona, where they won by 7. I mean, of course, that blowout a 16 seed. They beat Baylor by 23. They beat Alabama by 20. And Houston's been playing some tough games. Houston had a tough road. They look great against Tennessee, but it was dicey against Gonzaga, even dicier against Purdue. I just feel like Duke is rounding into shape at the right time to win a national championship. So lots of interesting storylines for those of you that follow along in different ways. And I guess as I get older, I'm following the ageist stuff. Look out, Western Conference. Here come the Nuggets, and Cleveland's looking over their shoulder. NBA next with Gresh.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining.
Coming down in 3, 2, 1. I'm Andy Gresh with the Sports Minute, sponsored by AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. A lot of teams are complaining about the tush push in the NFL, a play that the Philadelphia Eagles have basically perfected with a great offensive line and a moose of a starting quarterback. Here's what I don't understand. Why aren't more teams trying to do this themselves? Yes, the quarterback matters, but it's really about your offensive line and the timing when you call these plays. If you've got 5 bigs up front that are pretty good, you can run the tush push as well. Time for teams to stop wanting to get rid of the play and start embracing it and doing it themselves. I'm Andy Gresh with an Odyssey Sports Minute. I'm Andy Gresh. All right. This is Andy Gresh with an Odyssey Sports Minute sponsored by AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Three, two, one. This is Andy Gresh with a Sports Minute sponsored by BetMGM, the sportsbook board in Vegas. Please gamble responsibly. Well, Alex Ovechkin is only a couple of goals away from passing Wayne Gretzky as the all-time NHL leading goal scorer, and it feels like, unfortunately, no one is paying attention to this record. Now, I understand that if you're younger, maybe you don't have a connection to the great Wayne Gretzky, but he put a lot of pucks in the back of a lot of nets in the NHL, and the fact that anybody is even close to the goal record is amazing, let alone Alex Ovechkin, who is likely to pass it by the end of the year. Ovi doesn't pass Gretzky as an all-time great, but he puts himself right up there with the greatest scorers of the game. Hopefully people will start to pay attention. I'm Andy Gresh. This is Andy Gresh with an Odyssey Sports Minute sponsored by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Please gamble responsibly.
One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Gresh in for Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network. We're into hour two, coast to coast, border to border in America's hat, known as Canada. You can also get us around the world. You can get an internet connection on the Odyssey app, or you can watch me on the YouTube. That's right. Right into my castle and lair, watching me do this show on the Infinity Sports Network. 888-710-4ISN. And boy, what a night it was last night in the NBA. When Nikola Jokic does big things, people start to take notice. And I'll tell you, with what the Denver Nuggets are starting to do in the Western Conference, I am absolutely starting to think that, oh boy, here come the Nuggets. because they are rounding into shape with an unbelievable player in Nikola Jokic. Now, last night, I'm sure a lot of you may not have stayed up to see the game that went into double overtime, where the Timberwolves beat the Nuggets 140-139. And I give the Timberwolves a ton of credit. You know, they were kind of sputtering a little bit, and now we've started to see them surge somewhat here after this trade deadline. And, you know, Anthony Edwards is dialing it in. He had 34 points and 10 rebounds and 8 assists last night. And he should have been probably a bigger part of the story, because what the guy did was, you know, drag his team back from, you know, a game that was nip and tuck in the fourth quarter. But Nikola Jokic last night, ladies and gentlemen, he had 10 assists. He had 10 rebounds. You know he had double digits in points, so you know that it was a triple-double. But Jokic scored 61 of his team's 139 points. 61, 10, and 10. I was looking at some numbers today because I was doing some work on the team that I follow, the Celtics, and I looked at Jason Tatum's year. And Tatum is averaging a tick over 27 points a game. He's 5th in the league in scoring. And he's at, I think it's 8.8 rebounds a game. And I think it's just under 6 assists or just over 6 assists a game. Something like that. And then I look at Jokic, and he's averaging a triple-double. Because there's always the talk of who is going to be the MVP. And unfortunately, as a guy who likes the Celtics, for my man Jason Tatum, he's going to put up big numbers every year, and I don't think he'll ever really be an MVP candidate unless he goes above and beyond what the guy normally does, and he's already an all-league player, meaning let me correct myself. He's not just an all-league player. He's a first-team all-NBA player. He's not just some guy who maybe makes it once in a while. He's a dude whose hand is stamped. And you look at the numbers that Jokic is putting up, and it's just amazing. So the Nuggets did lose that game last night. They're 47-29. They're the number 3 seed in the West, and why that might work out for them. But the Warriors are winners last night. So Jokic goes for 61. Steph Curry, 52. 52. Along with 10 rebounds and 8 assists. And after the game, Curry said, he has a lot of gas left. He's like, we're fueled up and ready to go. So we know that the Warriors are getting themselves ready to kind of kick into that next level when it comes to the postseason. Now, I know I kind of blew by Anthony Edwards in the game that he had last night. Just because he didn't get a triple-double doesn't mean the guy didn't play his tail off. I can't wait for mature Anthony Edwards. I really can't, because if this guy is this good right now at almost 24 years old, what are we going to get out of this guy when he does settle down a little bit, when he sees the rest of when he starts to become a little more worldly, I guess is the way that I should say it when it comes to Ant-Man. Because there are certain things that I think matter to him now that won't when he gets a little bit older, with a little more life experience and with a little more NBA experience. But you look tonight in the NBA, and you really got something. You got something to watch in the 7 to 10 window, where tonight the Knicks will take on the Cavs in Cleveland. Now, Cleveland finds themselves at 60-15, and at one point, I do believe, at one point this year, Cleveland had near or close to a double-digit lead in the standings when it came to the Boston Celtics. Well, now the Celtics are only 4 games back of the Cavs for the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Celtics tonight are going to host the Heat. Celtics have been rounding into shape. Like, they're coming off of a 6-game road trip where the C's went 6-0. And they won their last game of that road trip in Memphis. 117-103 was the final, without Jaylen Brown. So that's an all-league player. That's a third-team all-league player. And the Celtics are so loaded and, most importantly, so healthy right now that to end a road trip, it was the first 6-0 road trip they ever have in the long storied history of the Boston Celtics. They go on the road, finish a road trip, give Jaylen Brown the night off, and still beat the number 2 seed in the West or a top 5 seed in the West with Memphis. And you beat them on the road without arguably your second best player. So if you're Cleveland, the heat is starting to turn up a little bit on them. And the Knicks are not a night off. Not that Miami necessarily is, but Miami has definitely slid back. And sort of that Jimmy Butler trade has now kind of caught up to them. But Cleveland just went through a bad 4-game streak where they lost to the Suns, the Kings, the Clippers, and the Magic. I mean, they went on the road for a roadie and ended up 2-5, only beating the Jazz and the Trailblazers along the way. And then they come home and lose to the Pistons. Well, they came home and beat the Spurs, then lost to the Pistons. Now, Cleveland has the Knicks. And if you're looking at it from a pure standing standpoint, the Knicks right now are the number 3 seed. And the team that seems to be showing a little bit of life in the East are the Milwaukee Bucks. So if everyone holds serve, meaning the standings kind of go the way they are right now, and if the Knicks are the 3, the Bucks are the 6 seed. That's a very dangerous matchup for New York because I look at Milwaukee and I say, if they just pull it together and get it right, if they just peak at the right time, and they had a performance last night where you're starting to wonder if Giannis is kicking it into gear. He's now averaging over 30 points per game. I know they've had the good doctor out there for a while, and Glenn Rivers has the ways of the good doctor finally sunken in to the brains of this Milwaukee team. Because here's the thing. Cleveland and Boston, regardless of how they finish 1-2, if you look at 7 through 10 in the East, it's rubbish. Rubbish. Orlando, Atlanta, Miami, and the Bulls, please. It doesn't matter who wins their funky little tournament because you're going to give the number 1 and the number 2 seed a bunch of time off, and then they're likely going to blow doors against any combination of those teams that match up with Boston and Cleveland. But look at 3 through 6. Pacers, Pistons. Pacers have been there a little bit. They got a great player in Tyrese Halliburton. And we know that the Pistons are one of those young teams that's knocking on the door. Hey, let me finally get to the point to where I'm in this playoff discussion. I almost look at Detroit and say, hey, you made it. And whatever you do against Indiana, excuse me, God bless you. Because if you win around, great. If you don't, no one's expecting it anyway. So then you're sitting there, if you're the Celtics, and you're saying, man, I might have to beat the Knicks or the Bucks along the way. Well, that is unless the Bucks end up winning. And then you're kind of juggling things around a little bit in terms of the playoffs. But look, I'm looking at the Knicks now and I'm thinking to myself, have they done enough? They made great changes in the offseason, but in reality, have they done enough for them to be able to handle a Milwaukee team that is 4-6 in their last 10, but they're showing a little bit of life? They're the dangerous team in the East. You know, and you can look at it two ways. If you're the Celtics, do you want the number 1 seed? Well, in theory, it might give you the easy path. It might give you the tougher path. I don't think you really know. That's why you just be really good and you try to peak for the playoffs and then feel good about where you sit. Just like right now, I think the Denver Nuggets have got to start to feel pretty good about themselves. Now, again, hand stamped championship credibility. They know how to build themselves up. Oklahoma City hasn't been able to break through and get to that NBA, get to the mountaintop in the NBA. And they do have some young guys on that Thunder roster, but given the success they've had in prior years, you're now getting to the point to where you think Oklahoma City could break through. The surprise in the West are the Houston Rockets, to which I say good for an experienced team that might match up against them in the first round. Because I look at Boston as a number 2 seed, and you're thinking that's the best team in the East. You're looking at Houston in the West, and you're saying, boy, that's pretty good, but damn, they're young. And what do young teams normally do in the NBA playoffs? They kind of slip and fall and falter a little bit. But right now, it's Oklahoma City, Houston, Denver, and the Lakers. And if it's a 3-6 battle first round, Denver gets the Grizzlies. Now, the Grizzlies are an interesting study because they're only 3 games back of Denver in the standings. However, when you look at Denver, winning record at home, winning record on the road. With Memphis, winning record at home, game over 500 on the road, but they also punted their coach. They're 2-8 in their last 10 games. The Grizz have lost 4 in a row, and they said, 10 games left in the regular season. This guy, Taylor Jenkins, is so bad that we have to rip the Band-Aid off right now and say, no, we got to get rid of this guy now for us to have any level of postseason success. I don't quite understand what they're doing down there in Memphis, and to me, they feel like they're a sitting target. They're there waiting to be plucked. If there's so much frustration in Memphis right now that whatever had to happen behind the scenes happened enough that they got rid of the coach, what does that tell you about the real mentality of the Memphis Grizzlies at this point? And the 4-5 right now in the West would be Lakers-Warriors. LeBron's back. Hasn't played great since he got injured. He's been okay. You can tell he doesn't look right. And then you have Golden State, who might be peaking at the right time. Now, if you're Houston, you're going to get likely Minnesota as the 7 seed. And I don't know outside of Ant-Man if there is enough for Minnesota to be able to win a round. I would dare say that, you look at the record, you would give them a puncher's chance, right? But against Houston, another young team who is going to make some mistakes, they're going to get coached hard by Ime Udoka. That's a winnable series for Minnesota. So could we end up with, say, Oklahoma City, Denver beating Memphis, and Golden State beating the Lakers? And I don't think Minnesota's great. I just think Houston, I feel like Houston is ripe to be plucked in the first round this year, and Ant-Man just might be the guy to do it. Now, we know that we got some games left here before the end of the regular season, but it's starting to heat up a little bit, and I would dare say 3 through 6 in each conference is pretty juicy. If you're going to give me Houston, Minnesota, that's a juicy 2-7 matchup. If you're giving me Celtics Magic, I'll wait till round 2 to start paying attention from a Celtics end of things. But it's starting to heat up, and what's amazing is you have multiple Celtic players who are really starting to peak a little bit, and Kristaps Porzingis would be one of them. But when you look up and down the roster of superstars, Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, you have Tyrese Halliburton. Over in the West, you got SGA, you got Jokic, you got LeBron, you've got Steph Curry, you got Ant-Man, you got Ja Morant. The Clippers are loitering with all their olds. They ain't gonna do nothing. I don't expect any. I mean, how many of those olds are actually going to play for the Clippers when it comes playoff time? But then again, maybe they can put a scare in Oklahoma City if they emerge from Dallas and Sacramento, which I think ultimately the Clippers and Minnesota will. But we're ramping up with teams that we know. We're ramping up with superstars that we love. And it's not only the old players, it's the young superstars as well. And you look at Houston, you got Jalen Green, so you got other youngs that are making their way into this NBA postseason. And really here, the next, what are we looking at? 2 weeks, really, in the end of the regular season? There is a lot that matters. Does Boston say to hell with it? We're just going to go on a run and we're just going to try to beat everybody and make it difficult on Cleveland when it's all said and done. I'm just trying to pull up the Cleveland schedule real quick. So they go New York, San Antonio, Sacramento, Chicago, Indy, New York, Indiana. Probably not enough tough games on the schedule for the Cavaliers to kind of collapse a little bit. But I do believe Boston is they're gonna push it, and they're gonna try to make it tough on Cleveland, knowing that they're going to get the rest of the play-in games, those top teams. 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476. Don't forget, you can get me on all the social medias. You find the app, I'm on it, at The Real Gresh, Gresh. Coming up, everybody has complained about the men's tournament. But does the women's NCAA tournament, combined with the results of the men, kind of tell us something about, do we need to adjust our expectations for these tournaments or not? I'll get into that. I am Gresh, in for Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
So, America, riddle me this at 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476. I am Gresh, in for Gelb, here today on the Infinity Sports Network. And may I ask you, Mr. and Mrs. America, what sport do you root for the worst team to go far? Think about it. Are you an NFL fan? Are you an NBA fan? Are you a baseball fan? Hockey? Do you ever if it isn't your team, it's a big caveat, right? If you're emotionally invested into your team and they're an 8 seed and you think that, fine, I get that part of it. But just if you're an average sports fan, have you ever sat down at the beginning of a playoff run and you said, damn, I'm going to be really disappointed if the 7-seed Pittsburgh Steelers don't go into Buffalo and beat Buffalo, the number 2 seed. And if I don't get that, it's going to ruin my whole fun of watching this weekend. Have you ever sat down to watch the Masters and said, man, I really wish this, 65-year-old guy who's living on an exemption would have just one more run, one more thing to get me all horned up for golf? Do you ever sit there? I mean, will you be looking at say the Sacramento Kings make their way in as the 8 seed in the NBA playoffs? You're going to be sitting there going, well, I'll tell you, Sacramento doesn't beat Oklahoma City. I'm going to be pissed. I'm going to be mad. No. But yet psychologically, and I talked about this last hour, I think it has been promoted into us, beaten into us in a way, just clubbed over the head as sports fans. The Cinderella makes the NCAA tournament. The Cinderella makes the NCAA tournament. Almost like it's chanting it in your head. And yet this year, very little Cinderella. And even when I look in the Sweet 16 of the women's tournament, which usually does not get the massive kind of upsets that, say, the men's tournament would. You know, you had a 10 seed that went on to the Sweet 16 and ultimately lost to Duke. No real high seeds in there. But the one thing we did see, no pun, was UConn did play USC, as USC was the number 1 seed. Of course, Juju Watkins got hurt, mitigating circumstance. But when most people think about college basketball, especially when it comes to women, you know UConn's really good. And even though they were a number 2 seed this year, that is number 1 seed-worthy type team. And then we had all the number 1s in the men's game win. So does that tell us that this is what our future is when it comes to watching either the men's or the women's NCAA tournament? I mean, let's not act like there aren't more people who aren't aware of the women's game because of the run that Caitlin Clark was on the past couple of years. And you had people like Juju Watkins at USC and Paige Beckers at UConn and stars at UCLA and people like that. You still have plenty of stars to go around to sort of keep kind of the Caitlin Clark momentum going, let's call it, when it comes to the women's tournament. But in the women's game, we're getting UCLA, UConn, we're getting South Carolina and Texas. In the men, we're getting Duke and Houston, and we're getting Auburn and Florida. Now, in any given year, I don't care what the ranking is, UConn can beat anybody in the country when it comes to the women's game. They've done it. They've proven it. They are that good. They get those players. They're a big name brand. They're number 1 seed worthy. So essentially, in my mind, we have 8 number 1 seeds in the Final Four. Now, I don't want that every year, but isn't this scenario better than what we had 2 years ago, America? 2 years ago, we had 2 5 seeds, a 9 seed, and a number 4 seed make the Final Four. And the number 4 seed, UConn, won that national championship. And let's remember the name brands we had in that Final Four. San Diego State against FAU was the game opposite UConn. Now, last year, we had NC State as an 11 seed make it. But I would ask you this. I brought up earlier how Arkansas was a 10 seed, and their head coach was John Calipari. So a lot of people couldn't look at them as a double-digit seed and think of them potentially being a Cinderella at all. At all. But NC State was. And the ACC. That's a big team and a big brand. They've won a national championship before. It's just really interesting how we have not only selective memories as fans, but also I don't think anybody wants Cinderella in the Final Four. Remember the year George Mason made it all the way to the Final Four? Loyola of Chicago. And he hung around a little bit, but come on. Didn't you sit there looking at it like it was Oklahoma City and Sacramento in a closeout game? I mean, to use that as an example. You get the big name team and the big brand and all the big players, and here we go. You're going to go against, here's Cinderella. See, instead of all of us in America saying, my God, this could end up being some of the best 4 days of basketball we're going to have on the calendar with all these number 1 seeds in the Final Four, I kind of feel like we're sort of underplaying that a little bit. I feel like as if there have been some people that say, the tournament isn't as fun as it used to be. Again, if you end up with Kansas City and Buffalo in an AFC championship game, are you upset that you didn't get the 2 best teams in there? By seed, we got the 4 best teams in one bracket, And among the top 8 seeds, 3 1s and then a 2, whatever you want to consider UConn, hell, I'd throw them in number 5 overall. That's fine. So you're getting 8, regardless of gender, 8 of the best teams in basketball. And yet it feels like it's just another Final Four. And yet it feels like, here we go. It almost, hey, Final Four Saturday's great. It doesn't matter who's in it. Great. Give me San Diego State and FAU. Ugh. I don't want to see that. I might be okay with one team crashing the party every couple of years, but on the whole, I don't want to watch Kansas City, let's say, to use the NFL reference, beat up on the Chargers in a championship game. I just don't. I want to see the best. Same in basketball. Do you want to sign up for Celtics Indiana in another East Final? Or do you want Cleveland Boston? In no other sport do we sit there and say, I want the stinkier team to win. Yet it happens in the NCAA tournament. We've got coaches. We've got big-name brands. We've got the best teams in college basketball. This really, truly, this weekend should be the showcase of college basketball. It ain't going to be it every year, but this is the one year where if you're the NCAA, and please, they would have to pull their head out of their you-know-whats. But if you're the NCAA and you're hearing we didn't get enough Cinderella, the marketing now should be, by gum, you're getting the best of the best. The best weekend, maybe in the history of the college basketball Final Fours, is coming up. You should be pumping the snot out of it right now. Tell me how great it is. Club me over the head proverbially with these are the best teams we've had in these Final Fours collectively in X amount of years. You should be rushing to watch it. Because I hate to say, I'm still getting the feel of the, we didn't get enough in the early rounds. And people aren't embracing the greatness that is going to be this weekend on both the men's and the women's side. And I'm not a big women's basketball watcher at all. But I've learned that there are stars in that end as well. You're putting South Carolina in there, you got a star coach and you're getting star players. Same for UConn. Same for UCLA. You might just not know it if you don't follow it very much on the East Coast. This should be maybe the best set, men's and women's, set of Final Fours we have seen, I would dare say, maybe ever. Maybe the real excitement is going to be in these games, and people will kind of come back around on being down on the NCAA tournament. 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476. You know, there was a movie where they said hats for bats once. Well, I guess now we have to look at how the bats are made. Why Major League Baseball desperately needed the Torpedo Bats. And a man who never torpedoes anything, but will eat a great torpedo sub, I'm sure. The legend, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network, Sports Flash.
Always in for that. The Basketball Hall of Fame class of 2025 reportedly includes Carmelo Anthony, the third pick in the 2003 draft, who played 19 seasons. It was a 10-time All-Star and 3-time Olympic gold medalist, not to mention a national champ at Syracuse. Baseball action this afternoon. There is lots of it. Several finals right now. The Rangers blanked the Reds 1-0 as Jack Leiter gets his second win, going 5 innings in which he allowed just 1 hit. Paul Skeens gets his first, going 7 strong innings in the Pirates' 4-2 win over the Rays. Skeens giving up just 1 run on the day. In 11, it was the Brewers topping the Royals 3-2 on a bunt by Bryce Terang, and Ivan Herrera 3 homers, 6 RBIs And the Cardinals' 12-5 rout of the Angels. Mike Trout going deep in that loss. Bottom of the second, Tigers and Mariners are scoreless, as are the Guardians and the Padres. Wilmer Flores with his fourth home run of the Giants have a 3-0 lead over the Astros top two. Top three, it's the Cubs 5 and the A's nothing, while the Blue Jays lead the Nationals 2-0. Bottom five, White Sox and Twins have yet to begin because of a rain delay in Chicago. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Check out our new and improved website at infinitysportsnet.com. That's infinitysportsnet.com.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Zach Gelb Show.
I am Gresh in for Gelb here today on the Infinity Sports Network. You can watch me do this show. How can you resist my handsome face? Head to YouTube, type in the Infinity Sports Network. That live stream will pop right up. You can also listen to me anytime, anywhere, and Gelb and everyone here on the Infinity Sports Network on the Odyssey app. Well, let me just say, as someone who admittedly lives in a Northeast market where people take all the sports very seriously, I'll be one of those who will stand up and say, I was tepidly ready for baseball. I know that there are some talk show hosts and, I tell you, if you don't follow baseball, then maybe you're missing out back after this. Yeah, there are certain talk show hosts that are going to be the ones that are going to pound baseball like it's, 1985, and people are going to rise up and get all hot and bothered to go with Uncle Pete to the ballpark and have a couple of wieners and watch the balls fly out of there. I don't know why I went Southern accent. I probably should have gone with a Chicago or a New York, because to me, that's where I think people still take baseball very seriously and still hand it down generation to generation. Like, I have two stepkids. One's going to be 23 and the other one is 20 and a half or so. And neither one of them, they couldn't care less about baseball. UFC, they're all over it. I say, hey, come on, let's go to Fenway. I got, monster seats. They'll be like, I got something else to do. They're just not into it. But boy, oh boy, that's why, in my opinion, the Torpedo Bats have been a godsend for big league baseball. Now, you had, really before the regular season started, you had a lot of kind of negativity swirling around the game, right? There were questions about its financial future. For those of you that, I'm sure there's some fans out there who have been disrupted with the regional sports networks that have had to varying degrees make changes, and a lot of them were MLB rights holders. You got two MLB teams right now that are really, I think, kind of unwanted in the markets that they're in. So the A's got out of Oakland. We know they're eventually headed to Vegas, but they're playing in a minor league ballpark and can't even get their freaking television product on the air. And then you have the Tampa Bay Rays, who I don't know what they're about to become. For a period, I thought they were going to split time between Tampa and Montreal, in which I would have said we should just then call them the Tampontreal Expos. Thank you very much. That's funny as hell. You laugh at that, America, because that is funny. But seriously, and they're playing in a minor league ballpark. And then their major rights holder, one of the 5 big networks in America, the big 4-letter network that does sports, they look at it and say, you're not worth the money. You're not worth what we're about to pay you. So baseball, in my opinion, had kind of taken it on the chin a little bit going into the regular season, and then the New York Yankees hit 15 baseballs out of the ballpark in 3 days. And that's when people went, huh? What are these things? What are these torpedo bat deals? There's a guy who's a bat maker, Kurt Ainsworth of Marucci Sports. Now, Marucci Sports is the official bat of Major League Baseball. For those of you who didn't know that, right? I had no idea. However, they've talked about how building this bat kind of, moves around some of the you're tweaking with where you want the girth of the bat. You dirties out there. But that's the best way I can describe it. To me, it looks like a candle pin in a way. I don't know how many of you who can hear the sound of my voice right now on the Infinity Sports Network, Gresh in for Gelb, at 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476. I don't know how many of you have ever been candle pin bowling. I think it's really a New England thing, to be quite honest with you. I know there's duck pin, and there's candle pin, and then there's big ball bowling. Or at least that's what it's called 10-pin bowling is really what it is. And I'm kind of sneaky good at all of them, I got to say. I don't know if bragging about being a good bowler is something that I should be doing on national radio, people, but nevertheless, you can tell me how great I am at bowling at The Real Gresh on all the platforms out there. X and Insta and YouTube and all that. You can find me. But just watching from having youngs in my house, the one thing that did pique their attention a little bit were the torpedo bats in big league baseball. And it became, are these things legal? Are they not? And I find it interesting on a day where I sat in here for Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network, and the thing that I felt was lead worthy on this show today was the tush push and the fact that the NFL owners want to do something about it, but they're gutless, and they don't want to vote on it now. They're kicking the can down the road a little bit. And you could look at the tush push in the same vein that you can torpedo bats, can you not? Because as we have learned, Major League Baseball knew about this last year. If anything, as I smack myself on the forehead, there should have been more people like me and others who were kind of picking up on this. I admit, I didn't know it until this year. I didn't know there were dudes that used it last year. I didn't know that this bat had been around for players to, evaluate whether they go take some hacks in the cage and think they want to use this thing. So it's not like it is 100% completely new to the game of baseball or the bat makers or the people within the game. But a lot like the tush push, I guess I have to ask the question. So it took all these New York Yankees to have an unbelievable 3-day stretch to start the season for the rest of big league baseball to now look at these torpedo bats and say, maybe I should be using them. I do believe 2 nights ago it was, or it might have been a night ago, Ellie De La Cruz of the Reds, I think went 4 for 5 and hit 2 long Johnsons. He then looked at it and was like, yeah, I guess I'll keep using this thing. But if this technology was out there for big leaguers, I guess, again, a lot like why not use the tush push, I'm surprised more players have not kind of gotten on board. So now I wonder if it's going to go the other way. Now I wonder if it's going to turn into a referendum against the torpedo bats or, some guy who right now just stinks to high heaven like a Rafael Devers, right? Have you seen this guy start quickly for the Red Sox? This dude is their highest paid player. He's supposed to be one of the leaders on the team, bristled at moving from third base to being a designated hitter, where he's still going to get his $33 million and has started 0 for 19 with 15 strikeouts. Forget getting Rafael Devers a torpedo bat. We got to get him one of those like big fat wiffle ball bats that you would use in the backyard, where it's like the giant barrel on the thing. That's where I feel like they got to go like Gas House Gang. For those of you that remember the great Bugs Bunny cartoon with the Gas House Gang. Nevertheless, are we now going to get a guy like Rafi Devers who's like, well, gee, I can't swing my way out of a paper bag right now. Let me change my bat. And it turns into another 0-11 because the guy just, he's got cranius rectus like crazy right now. Can't figure it out. Went to the different bat. I don't like it. We start to hear kind of the other side of this whole torpedo bat deal. Now, I'll admit that the torpedo bats have not led me, say at, 9 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night after some of these games get started in different time zones. It has not, for me, turned me into someone that says, wow, I got to see what's going on in this game because this team ordered a bunch of torpedo bats. It at least brought some fun back to baseball. It now gives you, as a fan, maybe the ability to start to think that you're just not going to see kind of a station-to-station game where, yes, they're out there and they're stealing bases and moving runners, and some of that has come back in big league baseball. But I think for just a lot of younger fans, it is how far can you hit it? I really kind of don't care what you're going to hit it with. Just hit it a long way and entertain me. And if my team wins along the way, great. But just give me a reason to be able to watch if I'm an average Joe Blow sports fan. Major League Baseball, in my opinion, needed this to get out there. They needed this to become a controversy. They needed this to become a thing to be able to get some people like me who side-eyed the product a little bit, kept an eye on it as much as I needed to because it is a part of my job. But for me, I've rarely ever sat down to do a talk show in 28 years where, unless it was championship-related or controversy or something like that, on an idle Wednesday, I'm normally not sitting down and being like, hey, how about the final game of that series against the Pirates? But you give me a little something like this where there might be some controversy, where there might be a little bit of, okay, people asking questions, or like maybe a guy like Jazz Chisholm Jr., right, for the Yankees, just hits, a dozen long balls in the month of April. And I don't want to say like a star would be born, but it would become a part of the narrative. It would become a part of the story. You got to have things to be able to pass the time to talk about in baseball. And to me, this was one of them that was very necessary for the game, in my opinion. I do want to get back to the tush push because, boy, there are some folks talking out of both sides of their mouth. And, oh, NFL, what have you done to the kickoff? Do you want it? Do you not want it? Are you trying to save it? How about just admit you screwed it up? We'll get to that next. I'm Gresh in for Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Gresh for Gelb here with you. Final hour today. Zach will be back tomorrow, I do believe, here on the Infinity Sports Network. 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476. If you cannot get this show on your local Infinity Sports Radio or Sports Network affiliate, you can also go to YouTube. Just type in Infinity Sports Network. I'm right there. You can also give me anytime, anywhere on the Odyssey app. It is free. Download it wherever you go. So I started today talking about the tush push and how the gutless NFL owners are just kicking the can down the road. Now, the real truth is that you're about split 50-50 in the league in terms of owners on those who want to take the tush push away and those who are just okay with it and say, hey, we got to get better at stopping it. Sadly, I haven't heard many owners come out and publicly say, well, I don't know why more teams aren't doing it. I don't know why more teams aren't getting on board. They did when it was a running league and everybody wanted to run the ball, and then it became a passing league and everybody wanted to pass the ball, and now we're kind of balanced a little bit, and some years people were like, you can win the Super Bowl 31-30. What do you need defense for? And then you turn around the next year and, you get smacked by a really good defense. And then people say, well, maybe we got to get some defense too. And you see what I mean? It's kind of a follow the leader in the National Football League. And I'm sure there are some who are saying, how come our team doesn't do it? How come we're not doing this? Why are we not taking advantage of what was great strategy by Nick Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles? Instead, we got people who want to take it away. We have coaches that are now talking out of both sides of their mouths. We have sleepy owners sitting at press conferences who are, trying to cite things that either haven't happened yet or, as we know, could be the downside of any play in the world of football, where you can get hurt on any play. There is not a play in football where you can argue that there isn't an injury risk. Some higher, some lower. I get it, but you understand the overall point. Football is a contact sport. And when there's contact, there will be some dings and some injuries. But we're now getting to the point when it comes to the tush push that I think some people are paralyzed to do or say anything. I think the owners have been a little paralyzed on the, oh man, do I want to really bust someone or vote against this rule where someone figured out, relative to the quarterback sneak, how to build a better mousetrap is really what it comes down to. That's what Philadelphia did. Do I want to be a part of a league that says, hey, this play works really well, we need to find a way to outlaw it, or we need to find a way to ban it, or something like that? Or do I want a league where I want my coach to be a little innovative? I want my coach to try to find ways to work around certain rules and things like that, because it's only this much. There's a tiny bit of difference between winning and losing at a really high level. And I think back to the years that I spent on the Patriots Radio Network and the time around Bill Belichick. And to me, Robert Kraft will not vote for anything that's going to take away something that allows your coach's creativity to take over, or dare I even say, ability to kind of blur the lines when it comes to the rules. I think I want my guy to be able to do that. I used this reference earlier today, but for those of you out there that are NASCAR fans, I'm sure you have heard race car drivers in the past talk about how they want their crew chief. Maybe every once in a while the crew chief ends up getting his hands dirty or fined or suspended or whatever. But for a lot of car owners and even for drivers, they want those guys pushing the bar. They want them blurring the lines. They want them to maybe not cross it blatantly, but walk right up to it, maybe put your toe over there and see if, they're gonna bust you for something. Or will it take a couple of races for the governing body to figure it out, right? It happens in every sport. Think about it in hockey. Length of your stick shaft, curve of the stick, how much tape are you using? That kind of stuff. Cripes almighty, I just got done talking about in baseball. Luckily for them, they had the torpedo bat, generated some, interest in the game. So do you want to take all that stuff out if you're an owner? What gets me are the coaches. What gets me are the coaches who want to get rid of this, who also do something similar. Look, for example, Green Bay has been the one who's kind of raised the red flag on this particular play and wanted it kind of taken out of the sport. So a lot of people looked at Matt LaFleur and just said, oh, it's on you. It might be some people above him, but that Green Bay organization, they're the ones that are kind of pushing this a little bit. And There is no data to say that there are injuries, but I'm going to tell you why that's important, because there's a little bit of propaganda going on here. But let's hear these people first, right? So this is in a little bit of a crowded area. It was a mic picking up what Matt LaFleur, Green Bay head coach, had to say when he was asked about the whole, why do you want to get rid of the tush push? Here's the Green Bay coach.
Just when you look at the play, I would say I don't think it's a great football play. It's more of a rugby play. And then some of the injury concerns, we just want to kind of get out in front of that, and be a little bit more proactive than that.
And even though you guys ran it a few times, like with the tight end,
yeah,
you still feel that way?
We do it too. But we're going to adjust, to whatever the rules may be. And if it doesn't go through, it doesn't go through.
Very interesting. Hey, you guys have done it too. Well, yeah, but, we can adjust. Almost insinuating that Philadelphia wouldn't be able to adjust if there was some sort of change to the rule there, right? And that's what gets me, is that Matt LaFleur has run some version of this. In fact, in 4th and 1 situations, when Green Bay runs a quarterback sneak, it's not the tush push, but when they run QB sneak, it's pretty good. Pretty good success rate. I think they're up at 80%. On other 4th downs, they're kind of turdy. So the coach has to actually call a real play. Quarterback sneak, even with Jordan Love, still working it. And here's the other thing, too. There are lots of ways to run QB sneak. This is really just, I think Matt LaFleur is right. This is more of a rugby-ish type scrum in terms of the QB sneak. Not what's in front of the quarterback, but what's behind him. And then you have old Sean McDermott. Now, Sean McDermott is the Bills head coach. I will say, I just have to get it off my chest. He irks me. The whole monotone voice, hardly ever see the guy smile, that kind of deal. Reminds me of someone that I used to work for. So I'm sure there's some real PTSD there, at least for me anyway, in terms of Sean McDermott. And Buffalo stinks. Sorry, I know we may have a great affiliate in Buffalo. It's a toilet. Buffalo and Cleveland. Sorry to my great friend Ken Carman in Cleveland. Nevertheless, Sean McDermott has been one of the real, let's say, not tush push play callers, but they use their quarterback in a tush push, kind of way, because they got a big old quarterback at 250 pounds. So McDermott, in fact, if you just go to the AFC Championship or their game against Cleveland, I worked myself into a Fruity Whip headache on that one. When Buffalo played Kansas City in the biggest game of the year, they ran a version of this 5 times. Yet here's Sean McVay's thoughts on the tush push and why it's got to go away.
Similar to how I felt at the combine, I've dove deeper into more of the data on it, and just thought more about it as well. And my position hasn't really changed at all. I feel where I'm most concerned is. Even though there's not significant data out there to this point, my biggest concern is the health and safety of the players, first and foremost.
What are you seeing with the health and safety of the players? Since, as you said, there is really no data to say there's injuries. Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think anytime you get in, it's 2 things. It's force, added force, number 1, and then the posture of the players. Being asked to execute that type of play, that's where my concern comes in.
Do you think you'll continue to run the play? If it remains and you have concerns about the safety, do you think you'll continue to run it? Because I think you ran it quite a bit last week.
A form of it, right? A form of it. So I think it's a loose term, really, in terms of what defines a tush push. So there's different forms of it out there. I know we are one of the teams that people identify that run it. That's fair. There's other teams as well. So we're gonna always act in a way that's best for the health and safety of the players, and I think that's the responsible way to go.
Oh, my God. Sean McDermott there, ladies and gentlemen, head coach of the Bills. So I can't stop it, but I'm going to run it. I don't like the health and safety part of it, but I'm going to run the play. That's the part that gets me. And quite honestly, and we'll hear from the Bears owner coming up, the real propaganda that is being pushed out there right now is to put it on the radar under health and safety. And this is not a coordinated effort. This is just the people who can't find a way to get enough votes to get this play out of the game are now the ones that are going to cite health and safety, and they are, in my opinion, purposefully doing it without data to back them up. Because what happens every time we hear about NFL health and safety? Here come all of the people who don't know whether a football is puffed or stuffed. But boy, they're going to get all over the league because it's barbaric. There's brain injuries. People could get hurt. And here come all of the folks on the outside who, if you remember, what was it, 10 years ago? Let me tell you a little story. In 2013, I'm doing a television show on one of the regional sports networks in New England, NBC Sports Boston. And I got lectured as a football guy. I got lectured by one of the by a Hall of Fame basketball writer. And she was doing TV with me that night. And I got the lecture of, well, the concussions are going to ruin the NFL. You wait and see. In 10 years, the NFL is going to look completely different, and it's going to turn into flag football, and they're not going to be able to hit each other. And ultimately, you wait, in 10 years, it'll be the demise of the league, and this will get those kind of people to come out on the health and safety end. So that when the first big name player gets hurt on a tush-push play, whether it's a quarterback, whether it's an offensive lineman, a center, one of the pushers, maybe one of the defenders that goes running up in there, crowns themselves trying to stop the play. The reason we're getting all of this rhetoric now is because all it's going to take is one big injury, and the owners will have what they need to finally say, no, we shouldn't allow this play in our game. Mark my words, America. If someone in the 2025 season that is a quarterback or a big-name offensive lineman who cannot be replaced on someone's roster very easily, and that team gets hurt because of that injury, mark it down. The first big injury, the owners will finally get this play out of the game. And they shouldn't, but they will. So I think in terms of Philadelphia running this play, they have to hope that other teams who will do it not as proficiently as they do, I almost went with another phrase, but not as good as they are at doing it, and someone gets hurt, then it becomes weaponized. The injury is then the reason that everybody will finally vote against this play. And that takes me to George McCaskey, part of the ownership group of the Chicago Bears, and I don't know. I think they plugged him to a car battery to be able to get him to kind of sit upright and show a little bit of energy. It felt like whenever you're about to hear this, but I really think you have people on one end that are talking about health and safety and realizing there aren't the numbers. So why are they out there saying it? Because they're laying the groundwork for the one big injury. Let's take a listen to George McCaskey and what he had to say on all this.
We supported the proposal to get rid of it.
How come?
Health and safety. I know they say that we don't have sufficient injury data on it, but to us it appears to be an inherently unsafe play. I had the opportunity during committee meetings here earlier in the month to sit in the back of the room for the Health and Safety Committee meeting, and both Dr. Alan Sills and Dr. John York expressed concerns about the safety of everybody involved in that play. And, for decades there was a rule on the books making it illegal to push the runner. And it went away in 2004, and I always wondered why that happened. And Rich McKay, the chairman of the competition committee, explained to us yesterday that the officials said that it was too difficult when there was like a moving scrum down the field to determine whether an offensive lineman was blocking or pushing the runner. So they took it out, which led to the push play. From what I understand yesterday, the discussion about the push play is going to lead to a broader examination of whether that general rule should be brought back. And again, we think it'd be an enhancement to the game to make it safer for the players.
Okay, if you can find other examples, I think people would be willing to listen. But golly! God, the part of that got me. Well, we consulted with the doctors on the National Football League, and they're very concerned about the play. Oh, my God. Can I ask you something? And this would have been my follow-up. What doctor on earth would look at a football game and say this play is safe? That's the part that gets me. It's a contact sport. Admittedly, the world was a different place on the example that I'm about to give you. But to show you a little bit of kind of how people think in the game of football, okay? I was an offensive lineman, 92 to 95. I had to go get checked by a doctor in 95 for some kind of injury that I had on the field. It wasn't like debilitating. I played through it and stuff like that, right? So this is 30 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. 30 years ago. And you wonder about the whole doctor thing, which is why I reacted the way I did. 30 years ago, I had an offensive line coach tell me, don't go to a foreign doctor because they don't understand the nature of football in America. I was like, wait a minute. So you're telling me if the best doctor that I can go to is from another country, whatever it is, India, Japan, wherever, that I shouldn't go to that guy because they don't understand football. And he's like, yeah, that's right. Okay. And that's some of the thought of the in the sport of the whole high. So again, if I go the other way with it, what doctor is going to look at a play in the NFL and say, yeah, that's safe. Yeah, it's okay. Nobody will get hurt on that one. So when old man McCaskey rolls out of course, the presentation from the doctors, those guys are never going to tell you what you necessarily want to hear because it is their job to look at it from their perspective. And in the mind of a lot of doctors, it is, you people are crazy for playing this game. But just wait. One injury. I'm telling you, one injury is going to do it. And they'll be able to finally have the ammo to get rid of this play. Hey, don't forget, we are looking for your questions for Ask the Pros. Tweet your question to @INF Sportsnet or @TheRealGresh using hashtag #AskThePros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. Another thing that the NFL has kind of screwed up that deserves a redo or a look at once again is kickoffs. Come on, NFL. Can we pick a lane on kickoffs, please? We got to try to unpack this and figure out what these new rules will be next. I am Gresh, in for Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show.
What does the NFL want for kickoffs? Do they know which ends up? And I say no, they don't. I mean, the NFL doesn't know what the hell they're doing with kickoffs. I'm Gresh for Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network. 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476. So let me get this straight. In an era where people outside the game were squawking about concussions and head injuries, and the NFL doesn't care about their players and blah, 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 right? Didn't that lead to, well, the kickoff is one of the most dangerous plays in the history of football, and look at all the people who get hit hard even though they have pads on and understand the risks now. Look at them on the onside kick and getting foobarred, and my goodness, we can't allow that to happen anymore. What about the kick returner who gets hit really hard and knocked sideways because he's running at 20 miles an hour up the sideline before some kicker comes out of somewhere and, knocks him to his get twee birds around his head? We have guys that are now educated more than ever in the NFL when it comes to concussions, injuries, how seriously they're taken. 10 years ago in the NFL, they tell you, get some smelling salts and get back out there. Now they actually look for it. They test you. They try to make sure that you're not just doing harm to yourself. Players are also more educated than ever. So it was, well, we gotta mess with the kickoffs. We don't want kickoff returns because that's how everybody gets hurt. And then you get to the point to where you look at kickoffs and you say, nah, this is a dead play now. So the NFL, in their rush to avoid criticism from the outside, but also more importantly, future litigation when it comes to concussions in the game, they decided to mess around with the kickoff format once again. So when you look at the league's new kickoff format in its first season, the concussion rates on kickoffs dropped 43% from 2023. So, of course, that's going to lead people to say, well, that's why the rules should be expanded and stuff like that. But the problem was the fans were now complaining, or people were complaining, that this was a dead play. You get the touchback, fine, you come out, you spot the ball where you're going to spot it, and then you're moving on. And then if it all hit the landing zone and then it went through, it comes out to the 20-yard line. There's different – it's a Fruity Whip headache, in my opinion, to use the line from Beavis and Butthead, who I think were a part of putting together some of these whole kickoff rules in the first place. So you had and this is in the Jordan Schultz story, an unnamed special teams coordinator said, it's a cat and mouse game for kickers. Now there's a real tax to pay if you try to avoid returns. If you kick it deep, you're basically 2 first downs away from field goal range. That's going to mess with guys. In our building, we'd rather take our chances on a return than let Josh Allen or Mahomes or Burrow start with that kind of field goal position. So ball goes out of the back of the end zone. It's coming out to the 35-yard line. So if you got a big leg kicker and that guy just booms it, lands in the end zone, goes out the back, coming out to the 35-yard line. Now, mind you, America, that if you kick the ball out of bounds left or right before it gets to the goal line, it's spotted on the 40. So when the NFL saw that only 33% of kickoff returns were returned a year ago, they think they now have kind of fixed it with the tweak of, well, maybe less teams are going to be willing to boom it out of the back of the end zone. Now, remember, there's that 20-yard line to the goal line to where if the ball lands there and then goes into the end zone and is ruled a touchback, because the returner didn't do anything with it, that one comes out to the 20-yard line. So now we've created more confusion in some ways for everybody. And this whole dynamic kickoff is we got everybody lined up close to each other, so they took all the speed and that element out of the game. But now you're going to have guys peeling off, worried about a return. Now you're going to have to coach it up in a certain way to where you're trying to, I guess, take one side of the whole conga line of everybody lined up, end to end on the field. You're going to attack left, right. I don't know exactly how all of that would work. But my former teammate at the University of Rhode Island, Darren Rizzi, is the special teams coordinator out in Denver now. He was a finalist for the Saints head coaching job, and I was really bummed for my man Riz, who just went into the URI Hall of Fame, by the way. I was bummed for Riz that he didn't get a better look at that gig in New Orleans, but he told reporters at the owners' meetings, I do believe it was, the space and speed of the play were significantly reduced from what we're used to, and it was a tremendous success. That's why we felt the time was right to move the touchback back to the 35 and return to the original formation we proposed. So even I admit I'm getting sort of bogged down in all of these different things that can happen. And there are so many now intricate rules with it. Like, for example, the kicker cannot cross the 50-yard line until the ball touches the ground or the player in the landing zone or the end zone. It's like little nuanced things like that kind of get you. But the onside kick, the way I'm reading this is, in the onside kick, when the fourth quarter begins, the team trailing has the opportunity to declare an onside kick to the officials. The current onside kick rules would apply. So I guess they didn't really clean that up, because I get he had to change formationally. I don't like that you have to kind of openly declare what you're going to do. Let's remember what New Orleans did in a Super Bowl years ago. There have been other teams who have gone, isn't there the infamous thing of Pat McAfee where he kind of like just bumps it with his foot and then he runs up and everybody ran back to cover the kick, and there he is all by himself just falling on the ball on an onside kick. I hate that we've taken away some of that. But please, and I know that there are friends of mine that are involved in this. I consider Riz a friend. I missed him at the whole Hall of Fame induction thing. But, we text quite often. I would say to the NFL, can we come up with the strategy on this and just be done with it? I hate that it got tweaked to begin with, quite honestly. We're now educating players on concussions more and more. They would understand the risk they'd be taking of being the R1 up against the sideline and the one guy trying to run down there who could get knocked into next week and stuff like. Guys know it. They know it. They embrace it. There's better health care now. The money is to the point to where, even if you're a low-level player, you're still making some good dough, so you got the ability to change your life. Just NFL, what do you want the kickoff to be? Do you want it to be returnable or not? Because quite honestly, we're almost getting to the point to where the NFL might just say, to hell with the kickoff altogether. But then what do you do for an onside kick and things like that? And you get into the old fruity whip headache, and then you want to lose your mind. 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476. Hey, folks, Uber Eats is delivering game day deals from hundreds of your local favorites all week. Order now on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See the app for details. We'll also get to Ask the Pro as well. Make sure you get those in on Twitter to @INF Sports Network or @TheRealGresh, GRESH. And for one final time today with me, let's get updated on everything in the world of sports. Here is the great Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
Well, tons of day baseball, and the Padres still unbeaten, chasing the Dodgers, who are off to the best start since the 1933 Yankees. The Padres lead the Guardians in the bottom of the fifth 4-0, and earlier today signed their star outfielder Jackson Merrill to an 8-year extension. Also today, bottom of the sixth, it's the Mariners in front of the Tigers 3-2, while the Marlins lead the Mets 1-0 in the top of the fourth. Bottom five, the Giants have a 5-1 lead over the Astros. Wilmer Flores with his fourth home run of the season. Seiya Suzuki has 2 for the Cubs. They lead the A's 8-2 top of the seventh, while the Blue Jays in front of the Nationals 4-2 in the top of the ninth. And the Twins and White Sox finally underway after a lengthy rain delay in Chicago, and it's Minnesota in front 1-0. Jack Leiter goes 5 innings, allows 1 hit. The Rangers back-to-back 1-0 shutouts of the Reds, who had just 3 hits on the day. The Pirates top the Rays 4-2. Paul Skeens wins his first. It was the Brewers over the Royals in 11, 3-2. Ivan Herrera 3 home runs for the Cardinals today as they beat the Angels 12-5, and the Blue Jays 4-2 winners over the Nationals. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh my God, we're back again.
I know I said this to producer Mike Samter last time. That's the one time I turned my headset down on what I can and can't hear. Man, that Backstreet Boys thing. I think Zach could take that back. I really do. At some point, he will hopefully grow out of that one. Gresh in for Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network. Having a little fun with Gelb there. 888-710-4ISN. 888-710-4476. We will get to the Ask the Pros question coming up, but I just kind of found this, and I admit I was a little late to it this morning. So apparently Philadelphia Phillies reliever Matt Strahm has offered a counter to the Torpedo Bats. And I know we talked about the Torpedo Bats a little bit earlier today with Gresh in for Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network, right? So, of course, the Yanks hit all the home runs over the weekend, and Matt Strahm put this on X. Let them use whatever bat they want. Let's just allow pitchers to use whatever hitters have in the on-deck circle and not check us like we're criminals every time we walk on or off the field. But I'm just a pitcher. He says, I'm just a pitcher, but I'm assuming better grip helps you swing harder. And, of course, it's the ridiculous checks that pitchers get on and off the field each and every time they're out there. Now, Strahm did walk back to take a little bit, at least in regard to letting pitchers use the quote-unquote sticky stuff again. And even going back to, there was a fan who said, yes, this is exactly what I thought it would be. And you get the, hey, not sticky because some of that stuff was a bit much. Just whatever a hitter can use to grip a bat, we can use too. And I got to be honest with you, I really love that sentiment. I like that take because it feels like the way we've weighted everything in the NFL towards offense, it feels like there is a little bit of that going on. Like, what happened to the days where we could appreciate a starting pitcher who went, 8 innings and gave up 2 hits, no runs, and looked awesome doing it? I know that we're so offensive-minded, or a lot of people are, but whatever happened to being able to enjoy the the 100 pitch 9-inning shutout that great pitchers would have had over the years. Like, I got as much enjoyment of watching balls fly out of Fenway Park off of bats as I did watching Pedro Martinez mow people down and make great hitters look completely stupid and silly along the way. So I figured I would just slide that in there. We've hit some Final Four. I got some more NFL, some straggler NFL stuff to kind of get to before I am out of here today. But right now, it is time to answer our Ask the Pros question of the day, brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Of course, we asked you all show long. Submit your question by tweeting at INFSportsNet or at The Real Gresh using the hashtag AskThePros. And the question is from Craig in California, who says, who do you have winning the 2 Final Four games? Very good question. When I filled out my bracket, I had Houston going all the way and winning it all. So my original bracket was Houston against St. John's. So now that I know I got to react to these games, I think Auburn's going to find a way to make it to the national title game with Janai Broome. And I think Duke's beating Houston. And I got Duke winning the national championship now. So if I had to do like a Final Five to resubmit my Final Four, that's probably the way I would do it. I would go Auburn and Duke, with Duke winning the national championship. But I do believe it is a toss-up. This is one of the rare years where you go into the Final Four thinking that any one of these 4 number 1 seeds could go in and win the national championship. Thank you to Craig, and thank you to O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. You can think of them. Get guaranteed low prices, excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. I am Gresh in for Gelb with you. I got you for a couple more minutes. By the way, I just want to let you know that I will be on Sunday night this week on the Infinity Sports Network. Normally I've been doing Sunday afternoons. This week, kind of sliding it back a little bit. In fact, for those of you that remember the old Gresh Show here on the Infinity Sports Network, it was 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. every Sunday into Monday. So kind of sliding back into that spot. I guess Hickey is out, so I will see you on Sunday night here on the Infinity Sports Network. Have people gravitated towards the story that is Alex Ovechkin and Ovi's chase of the Great One? Last night in Boston, Alexander Ovechkin scored goal 891 in his glorious career. And they beat the Bruins. Bruins have lost 9 in a row, so they are just sucking pond water right now. But Ovi scored that goal on the road. He is 4 shy of breaking the record. Now, what's interesting is it says, I'm looking at some stats here, Ovechkin has only 4 career 4-goal games, most recently October 7th, 2017, against the Canadiens. Now, Washington will play in Carolina tonight. Ovi has got 4 goals in his last 3 games against the Hurricanes, including a goal in 3 straight. So when you look at the overall numbers in terms of the top 2 goal scorers in NHL history, Ovechkin is at 891, Gretzky 894. It took Gretzky 1,487 games to get his 894 goals. Anyone out there want to play along with me as you're driving around or listening? How many games has it taken Alex Ovechkin to get his 891 goals? Anyone? Bueller? Anyone? 1,484. So if Ovechkin wants to beat Gretzky's record in terms of games played, then he's going to have to get on the stick and maybe put in 2 tonight. or go get himself a 2-goal effort to sort of shrink that margin a little bit. But it's really wild to think about. Everything that we have heard about Wayne Gretzky, and I was one of those who was able to watch, Gretzky's career even though I was young. But the fact that it took this guy 1,487 games to score 894 goals, and Ovechkin is right there with him step for step, yet I wouldn't dare try to sell to a hockey fan that Ovi is a better pure scorer than Gretzky. Now, let's also remember something, too, because I did get into a little bit of bickering with someone about Bill Parcells about this. I think we need to remember that some of these people, not only when they played and when they coached, there was no free agency in their individual sports. I know Gretzky got traded to L.A., but there was a part of Gretzky's career where he was in Edmonton that he didn't have to worry that Mark Messier or Yari Curry or people like that were just going to up and leave because you didn't have the free movement in those sports. So I hope the Ovi story ends up picking up a little bit of steam here because it feels like it's kind of an underplayed story here in America. I don't know what it's like in America's hat. I don't know how they're reacting to it in Edmonton or in Calgary or in Winnipeg or Toronto or Montreal, all those places that think they've invented the game of hockey, and they probably did. I don't know where they land on it in terms of a big-time story, but at least here in America, I find it to have been tepid, to kind of say the least. A couple of things I want to get some thoughts off before I'm out of here tonight. By the way, JR is up next for a JR Sport Brief right here on the Infinity Sports Network. I can't believe it isn't done yet between Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. I think it's a situation where Aaron Rodgers has lost really all leverage, and now he's got to kind of play a game of chicken with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I love the fact that some of the leaders in the Steeler locker room, namely Cam Hayward, have come out and said, yo, man, we'd love to have you, but, you want to be here or you don't. And ultimately, that is your decision. And I feel like Rodgers is kind of dragging his feet a little bit in saying yes to Pittsburgh, in trying to negotiate. But at what point do the Steelers and Tomlin just say, dude, you have nowhere to go. You're coming here or not. That's it. We made your offer. You can choose to come here or not. I don't get it. All Aaron Rodgers has to do is just go be a dude there. And then finally, NFL, I know I've complained about you a lot today, but man, oh man, why are we messing with overtime? Why do we have to go in the regular season when did it become an overtime that everybody has got to touch the ball and be even Steven? And let's make sure we've had everybody on the bum and make sure it feels equitable. Get the hell out of here with that stuff. Great job by Mike Samter today, keeping me on the straight and narrow. Same for Pete. JR's next. I'll see you Sunday night.